Imagine this: Graceland, Memphis. Early morning of August 16, 1977. The king of rock is awake, alone in his room. A record still slowly spins on the turntable, echoing its last chords. Next to the bed, an open book, turned face down. A page marked in the middle of a reflection about the face of Jesus Christ. Minutes later, the world would lose one of the most iconic voices in history. Today, we will discover what was the last album Elvis Presley listened to, and the mysterious book he was reading before he died, revealing the spiritual and solitary side behind the greatest music idol. On August 16, 1977, the world woke up to the news that Elvis Presley, the king of rock, had passed away. But like most pop culture icons, his last night was marked by a seemingly ordinary routine. A routine that, however, was immersed in omens and reflections. Elvis was at Graceland, his famous mansion in Memphis, a place where he spent much of his life isolated from the world, but also exposed to a complex network of staff, friends, and family. It was a location that offered a mix of privacy and vulnerability, where Elvis could both retreat and be visited by his fame, which had already reached its peak. On the night of August 15, Elvis was suffering from obvious health problems, including hypertension and chronic pain. His condition was no secret to those close to him. Some reports suggest that he was tired, his body marked by years of excess and the frantic pace of a career that allowed no rest. Still, he remained quite active in his personal and spiritual life. According to Elvis's fiancée, Ginger Alden, the singer was calm and, during the night, seemingly doing what he always did, reflecting and searching for something that comforted him. She reported that just before his death, he was in the living room, listening to music and reading. Some sources indicate that the last album played on his turntable was Moody Blue, released in July 1977. This album, which marked the end of his musical career, was a combination of studio recordings and live performances made in the last months of his life. The fact that Moody Blue was the last album Elvis listened to before his death is symbolic in itself. The lyrics of the album, which include tracks like Way Down and Unchained Melody, speak of loss, nostalgia, and unfulfilled desires, themes that seem much more intimate and prophetic in light of his untimely death. Among the records and musical reflections, Elvis was reading a book about the Shroud of Turin. The book in question, A Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus by Franco Adams, explores the scientific theories behind the legendary cloth that enveloped the body of Christ. This choice of reading, especially in the context of his frail health and constant search for spiritual answers, is highly significant. It points to an Elvis who, despite being surrounded by fame, felt a need for understanding and faith, themes that dominated much of his personal life, especially in his later years. The night from August 15 to 16 was, for many at Graceland, like many others, with a crucial difference. Elvis was becoming more and more isolated and introspective, trying to find answers in his faith and in his art. Some family members claim he seemed to be in the middle of an existential reflection, perhaps confronting his own mortality, although his death was sudden and, for many, unexpected. In the early hours of August 16, around 2:30 a.m., Elvis was found by Ginger Alden in his bathroom, unconscious and without vital signs. The attempt at resuscitation was in vain. The official cause of death was a heart attack, likely caused by a combination of factors, including the excessive use of medications and his pre-existing health conditions. When his death was confirmed, the world lost an icon, and his personal journey, marked by internal struggles, uncertainties, and a sense of spiritual search, came to an end. Interestingly, Elvis's last action before heading to the bathroom was to check the wall clock, a moment remembered by those around him. This small gesture suggests that, perhaps, Elvis knew time was running out, or that, like many artists, he lived on the edge between the real and the metaphysical, always aware of what he represented, but perhaps also trying to understand his own death. Elvis Presley's last act was undoubtedly an attempt at reconciliation with something beyond the physical, something that transcended rock, glamour, and even the excesses that marked his life. Elvis's death at Graceland, surrounded by music and books, was not just the end of a music icon. It was the end of a personal search, a search for deeper meaning, a balance between the spiritual and the earthly. When Elvis died, he was not just leaving behind a musical legacy, but also a spiritual journey that many still try to understand. Elvis's last night, filled with silence and music, remains an enigma, a reflection of the complexity of the man behind the myth. In July 1977, just months before his death, Elvis Presley released his 24th and final studio album, Moody Blue. This album not only marked a turning point in Elvis's career, but also served as a time capsule, reflecting a man on the brink of self-discovery and melancholy. Moody Blue was a unique project in Elvis's discography, not only for its musical style, but also for the circumstances surrounding its recording. Unlike many of his previous albums, which were recorded in large recording studios, Moody Blue was a combination of live and studio recordings made during his final tours and sessions at Graceland, his famous mansion in Memphis. This album was also the first to be released on blue vinyl, which later became a collectible feature. This hybrid format of studio and live recordings brought a sense of intimacy and vulnerability, a clear reflection of an Elvis who was no longer at the peak of his career, but still possessed undeniable creative strength. The album was produced by Felton Jarvis, the producer who had worked with Elvis on many of his final works, and featured a variety of musical styles, including romantic ballads, country songs, and even some pop and soul influences. The album opens with Unchained Melody, one of the most iconic ballads of all time, already known for its powerful emotional appeal. This song, recorded live during his 1977 tour, perfectly exemplifies Elvis's voice, emotional, vulnerable, and full of immense emotional charge. It's easy to imagine why this song, with its sense of longing and loss, became one of the last recordings Elvis left for the world. His rendition of Unchained Melody is loaded with feeling, with a melancholy that perfectly fits his emotional and physical state at the time. Another significant track on the album is Way Down, one of the last songs to achieve great success on the charts after Elvis's death. With a pulsating bass line and a more upbeat vibe, the song stands out for its engaging rhythm and the sense of urgency it conveys. Way Down is both energetic and introspective, a song that could be seen as a reflection of Elvis trying to find energy and strength despite the difficulties he was facing. Other tracks like He'll Have to Go and Let Me Be There explore Elvis's more romantic and country style, with lyrics that deal with themes of love and disillusionment. These songs serve as a reminder that although Elvis was at the height of his popularity during the 1950s and 1960s, he continued to evolve as an artist, exploring new sounds and ways to express himself. Released just a few weeks before his death, Moody Blue quickly became a success, reaching number 3 on the US charts. The song Way Down became a posthumous hit, rising to the top of the country charts and solidifying Elvis's relevance in the musical scene, even in his absence. This album was also significant for its style and Elvis's performance as an interpreter. Unlike some of his previous albums, which focused on grand productions and orchestral arrangements, Moody Blue has a more personal and introspective touch. The songs are simpler, without the overload of instruments or choirs, which makes Elvis's voice even more central. The album is permeated by a sense of vulnerability, as if Elvis was aware that his days were numbered and perhaps wanted to say goodbye to his fans in a more intimate and real way. This is especially evident in the way he performs the songs. Each one seems loaded with an emotion that resonates beyond the words and musical notes. The importance of Moody Blue goes beyond its sales and posthumous successes. The album represents a transition in Elvis's career, a kind of reflection of the man he had become, not just the global icon, but the man grappling with his own struggles. It is, in many ways, a sonic testament to the loneliness and search for meaning, themes that marked the final years of his life. After his death, Moody Blue became a kind of symbol of Elvis's duality, the extraordinary showman and the vulnerable man who sought meaning amid fame. The album was certified platinum by the RIAA, which attests not only to the popularity of the work, but also to its power to connect with the deepest emotions of Elvis. Moreover, the blue vinyl became one of the most sought-after versions by collectors, with its rarity increasing each year. More than just a record, Moody Blue became an icon of Elvis's posthumous legacy, reminding fans of his complexity and the lasting impact he had on music and pop culture. Moody Blue is not just Elvis Presley's last album. It is the reflection of a man who was aware of his own mortality, but continued to express himself through his art. The way the album was composed and how it resonated with his audience in the months following his death are a testament to Elvis's immortal legacy. With its engaging rhythm, emotional ballads, and lyrics full of deep feelings, Moody Blue closes Elvis Presley's career in a way that matches the complexity and contradictions of his life. He was no longer just the 50s rock and roll icon, but an artist who, even in his final days, sought to make the deepest human connection possible, the connection through music. Elvis Presley, beyond being a music icon, was also a man deeply marked by spirituality and existential questions. Throughout his life, he was interested in various spiritual and religious traditions, seeking meaning and answers to questions that tormented him. This was evident in his choice of reading during the final hours of his life, A Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus by Frank O. Adams. This book, which Elvis was reading in the early hours of August 16, 1977, is a work that examines the Shroud of Turin, the famous cloth believed to have wrapped the body of Jesus Christ after his crucifixion. The book presents a scientific and historical analysis of the cloth, exploring theories about its origin and the mysteries surrounding it. The shroud, known to many as the face of Christ, is a deeply symbolic item with spiritual meanings for Christians, and its connection with Elvis Presley only deepens the mystery of the artist's spiritual search. Elvis's interest in spiritual themes is not new. From a young age, he was strongly influenced by Christianity, especially the Assemblies of God Church, where he grew up in Tupelo, Mississippi. Throughout his career, he remained connected to the Christian faith, although his relationship with religion was often marked by inner conflicts and a search for a deeper understanding of the spiritual world. In his youth, Elvis began reading books on spirituality and philosophy that went beyond traditional church teachings. Works like Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda and The Prophet by Khalil Gibran helped shape his worldview, incorporating elements of Eastern spirituality and mysticism. When Elvis started reading A Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus, he was undoubtedly seeking deeper answers to existential and spiritual questions that troubled him. He was interested not only in the historical figure of Jesus Christ, but also in understanding the scientific and physical aspect that could explain the phenomenon of faith, religion, and spirituality. The Shroud of Turin is one of the most mysterious religious artifacts in history. The piece of cloth, measuring about 4.4 meters long by 1.1 meters wide, bears a faint image of what appears to be the face and body of a crucified man, with visible wounds and marks that match the description of Jesus Christ in the Gospels. This cloth, which is venerated as the holiest relic of Christianity, has been the subject of scientific, historical, and theological debates for centuries. Elvis was, therefore, interested in one of the greatest religious mysteries of all time, a cloth that some believe was used to wrap the body of Jesus after the crucifixion. The idea of searching for the face of Christ and understanding more deeply the nature of what is depicted on the Shroud of Turin deeply touched Elvis, who in his final days seemed more inclined to seek both physical and spiritual understanding of the sacred image. His reading of Franco Adams's book shows that he was not just absorbing information about a sacred object, but trying in some way to connect directly with the divine mystery. Throughout the final years of his life, Elvis became increasingly reflective and introspective, particularly about issues of faith and existence. His health was declining, and he was aware of the fleeting nature of his life and his impending death. This can be seen as an attempt to find something greater, a search for meaning beyond fame, songs, and star status. The book Elvis was reading reflects this state of mind, a quest for divine answers amid his physical and emotional pain. In his own life, Elvis experienced great loneliness despite his massive popularity. He often felt that his fame distanced him from a true connection with people and even with faith. Many reports indicate that Elvis constantly sought to fill a spiritual void that was never fully satisfied by his professional successes or personal relationships. The fact that Elvis was reading a book about the face of Jesus in his final hours can be interpreted as a reflection of his desire to seek a deeper spiritual connection, to find the spiritual truth he perhaps felt was slipping away from him. The choice of this book was not a coincidence. The Shroud of Turin, with its enigmatic image of Christ, represented the unity between the sacred and the physical, a symbol of how spiritual issues can manifest in something tangible. The figure of Jesus, especially the image of the shroud, has profound significance in Christianity, death and resurrection. Elvis, who had already explored faith in his songs and personal life, likely saw a connection with his own journey of life and death. By choosing this book, he may have sought a deeper understanding of the concept of redemption and life after death. Indeed, in many of his gospel albums, like How Great Thou Art, 1967, Elvis explores themes of faith and salvation, and he often referred to the desire to redeem himself from his own mistakes and find spiritual peace. The book about the shroud could be seen as an attempt to understand what comes after death, something that tormented him as he faced his deteriorating health and his own mortality. Elvis's spiritual search was not just a phase of his life, but a continuous process that accompanied him until his last moments. The fact that he was reading a book about the Shroud of Turin in his final days is not just a historical curiosity, but also a reflection of Elvis Presley's spiritual legacy. He was not just the king of rock, but a man who struggled to understand himself, the world, and the deeper spiritual issues that undoubtedly marked his life. Elvis, like many, sought a greater purpose, and the search for spiritual answers is what many of his fans still see as one of the most human and touching parts of his story. The book he was reading before his death was not just about Jesus or the shroud, but about the human desire to connect with something transcendental, something eternal. This search, in the end, reminds us that despite his fame, Elvis Presley shared with us all the universal experience of the quest for meaning, and that music and spirituality can be powerful tools in that journey. We've reached the end of our journey through Elvis Presley's last night and final moments, an eternal music icon, but also a man deeply in search of spiritual answers and meaning for his life. Between the melodies of Moody Blue and the pages of a scientific search for the face of Jesus, Elvis left us a legacy of reflection, introspection, and, of course, music that transcends generations. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think Elvis was searching for in his final days? Leave your thoughts here in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and felt the emotion of this story, don't forget to hit like, as it's essential for more people to learn about the incredible journey of the King of Rock. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, subscribe now so you don't miss any of our stories and curiosities about the greatest pop culture icons and history. Hit the notification bell and you'll be the first to know when new amazing videos like this one are posted. And of course, share this video with your friends and family who are also Elvis fans and want to know more about the mysteries surrounding his life and death. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue to explore the legacy of immortal legends.